What's in the box?
Cheap kitchen knives.
You're a knife salesman.
How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing good. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you again. And I'm so thrilled to talk about Last Stop in Yuma County. This was just an absolute thrill ride from start to finish. Feels like a great 70s set, Hateful Eight style story. And I loved it. What about the project really sparked your interest, not only to star in it, but also to get in the executive producer chair for it?
I read the script and it reminded me of that kind of 70s thriller bag of money in a desert kind of movie. And I was like, oh, I get to be Jimmy Stewart. Oh, I would get to be this like Paul Newman kind of dude. All right, and I was like, all right, this is a very small movie. Like we'd shoot it, but it would be, an hour and a half away from my house. I was like, it wouldn't be too crazy. It wouldn't be, shooting in Eastern Europe. And then I was like, it could be an interesting thriller. And then I met with Francis Scalupi, the director and writer, and we were supposed to talk about the movie and just movies in general. We ended up spending 3 hours talking about South Park. And I was like, I'm in. This guy is my buddy. And honestly, it was just meeting with Francis. He's such a cinephile and is so craftsmanship driven. It shows in the movie when you watch it. But that kind of craftsmanship is absent from most movies and cinematic experiences that I've seen lately. There's this drought of good filmmaking, and so literally just talking to him and seeing his plans and overheads and all the drawings that he had, I could see the movie before signing up as an actor. And from my experience of being a filmmaker, I was able to say, "Oh, this could be very good." I kept my fingers crossed the whole time, but I invested well, and I'm very glad that I did.
Well, I love that you got to have that close bond with him and that it turned into this movie because, like I said at the top, it's incredible. Now,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, with the knife salesman, I feel like typically with your characters, even though they have some kind of complex layer to them, they're generally very sure of themselves, whereas the knife salesman feels kind of mousy, maybe a little more reserved. And I'm curious if that was a conscious choice by you, by Francis, and how that kind of came about for you.
We talked a lot about what kind of guy hides under a table in a booth when any kind of violence takes place. Yeah, so it was very consciously playing a coward. Very few other people in the film are as cowardly as I am. And we wanted to make it a pivot so that when you're following these other characters, I'm the main character of the film, but then everything kind of lands in my lap, and then I have to either do the right thing or do the wrong thing. And we thought that would be very interesting to see someone who is very ill adept at a lot of this gun toting stuff to then have to tote guns. We found that to be very funny. So in reading the script, in talking to Francis about the character, it was like, oh, how wild can I play this guy? How dumb can I play this guy? And that's always a great conversation to be having. You're on the right steps to make a great film when you're asking the director, how dumb can I play this person? But no, it was very much all in the script, and I just got to come in and make it goofy.
I love that. So in talking about Francis, then, I mean, you yourself are a filmmaker, and even though you've been in some films that you haven't directed since the beta test, but like this feels like one of your first big roles since then. And I'm curious what that's like for you, making that sort of jump back to just acting in comparison to directing yourself and others while you're making a film.
Yeah, so this is my first time being the lead actor in a movie that I didn't create. I did not write and direct. And so it was a pivot for me. I did have to learn to shut up. And day one, I kept on, being like, I think the eye line is, oh, sorry, I'm sorry about that. I'm like, there's a million little things that you realize after transitioning from filmmaking to just acting. But it was very freeing, and Francis shouldered a lot of the burden that I would normally do in filmmaking. So I just got to act, and I didn't have to worry about tomorrow. I didn't have to worry about the next day not happening and running into production meetings. I just got to memorize lines and say them and work in rehearsal. So it was very freeing, and I now get it. I now understand why people pursue this career and not try to do everything at once.
It does seem like it always blows me away when I see your films and I just go, man, he had to do all of that behind the scenes as well as in front, and yet he kills it.
It's awful. Oh, it's awful. It's so exhausting. I act in one of the shorts that's going to Tribeca that we made this year. I acted, wrote, directed, sound designed, edited, and it's taken me a year to finish the thing. It takes forever. So much thought and heavy work goes into post, that, Francis had to burden all of that for the feature. But yeah, I'm not surprised that more people don't pursue this thing. It's a crazy thing to do.
It truly is, and I'm so grateful that you have done it though, because I love so many of your films.
Oh, thanks, Grant.
Absolutely. Now, you play a lot against Richard Brake in this film, and he is just
Yeah.
terrifying in his similarly reserved nature. And I'm curious for you, after filming wrapped on that first day, what was kind of going through your mind of having played across from him?
Oh, it was great. It was great. He and I also had such camaraderie on set because he really loved Thunder Road. He really loved the feature of Thunder Road, and he and I got to talk about that. And then I got to talk to him about his discography of working with all of the top directors of all time. Um, and so really lunch breaks were just talking about movies and acting and his experience. And I just wanted to learn so much. And then he comes in and the cameras start rolling and he's terrifying. It was like, oh, this is my buddy Richard. It's like, oh, this is a guy I talked to about Adam Curtis documentaries. And it's like, oh no, this is a man with a gun who's shouting at Jocelyn. I have to protect Jocelyn. He's very good when he comes on. As soon as the camera starts rolling, he is a very frightening figure, and then is also just a really lovely, wonderful performer and good friend.
I love that you got to have that off camera camaraderie, even if it didn't carry forth into the story. You mentioned Jocelyn. I love her in this movie. I love this sort of tense dynamic that you two form as you try to plot different ways to get out of the situation. What was it like finding that rapport with her, in rehearsals and during filming?
Very easy. It's the easiest thing ever. I mean, I people always say like, it's kind of cheating casting Jocelyn and stuff because she is so angelic and endearing and lovely that like you could have her act with a brick wall. People be like, wow, they really have a great relationship, that brick wall and her. She is so lovely and so focused, and she really couldn't take part in a lot of the fun that we were having because she had to be in funny games the whole movie. She's held hostage and is like the most susceptible victim in the diner. And then the way that we shot, we always saved her for last because we were flipping the world, and then she's usually on this side of the diner. And so she had to stay in this kind of frail, downtrodden performance the whole day before we shot with her. And But really, she is such a lovely person. It comes across in the movie. She's so wonderful in the film that she is very much her reputation, and it precedes her. She's a really, really lovely person, and working with her was really great. Just the scenes that we have, even though most of our scenes are not dialogue, it's just us looking at each other and be like, what do we say now? The scenes that we did have that were dialogue, we did get to rehearse a lot and laugh a whole bunch. She's really, really wonderful.
That's awesome. It really is easy to root for her in this movie because she does bring a lot of that heart to the character.
Yeah.
I see I'm almost out of time. So I also wanted to talk about your striking appearance with the hair and the suit that you have in this film. And I'd love to hear where that decision came in. Was that Francis? Was that you? Was that hair, costume, all that?
It was a bit of both. So I was like, well, I've never been blonde in a film before. I'd love to be blonde. And Francis's wife, Rachel, is a professional hairstylist. So she's like, oh, well, come over. We'll do some tests. We'll like dye your hair. I've never dyed my hair before. And we went over and started to do it. And it turned out red. And Rachel goes, well, maybe it's a happy accident. And Francis goes, it's an accident. For sure, it's an accident. And then the more that we did it, it was like, oh, it's interesting. I'm a redhead. I have this kind of like, Robert Redford thing going. This could be neat. It's still of the period. It's not Paul Newman, but maybe I could be the Sundance Kid instead. And it really worked. And then for the outfit, I hated it. It was such a stupid outfit, but it's based on a few characters' wardrobe from different films that Francis really liked. He thought that it would be a good fit. And then my idea at the end of the film was to rip the jacket off because I was wearing that suit the entire month that we were shooting in the desert, and it was awful to wear, so sweaty. And I was like, can I just please rip this thing off when my character has had enough? And he was like, that's fine. We could do it. And so at the end of the film, I get to disrobe a bit. but no, it was all Francis's idea of how I should look and feel. And I look ridiculous. The hair is absolutely ridiculous. The comb over, my hair it's never looked worse. It's great.
It plays into the character well of this sort of potentially
Pathetic.
seedy salesman, but
Yeah, exactly.
it didn't fully click with me until he goes out to have a smoke after the big thing happens. No spoilers.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting look to say the least. And for my for my very final question, you mentioned the short that you got coming up, but I mean, when can we look forward to seeing you in the director's chair for a feature again?
Man, I don't know. So we're going through one of the hardest times in Hollywood history, and the tech companies that used to finance stuff to compete with each other to make a bunch of stuff are now belt tightening. It's very difficult to get anything made. The majority of people that are making money in the film industry are the executives. That it's never really creatives. So I don't know. I think I'll probably do another crowd campaign to raise the funds to do something. I hope to do that this summer and then possibly shoot this fall and winter. But I don't know. I would really love to do stuff. We're talking about doing big stuff, but it hasn't become real. It's still just conversations, distracting, seductive conversations. So hopefully this year, but I can't say. It's crazy.
It is an unfortunate, weird, rocky period, but I hope that you get to keep going because I love everything you see. And so I did actually want to then ask, what kind of genre can we be looking forward to from you next? You started with dramedy, you went horror comedy, and then you went erotic thriller. What are we looking at next?
There's it's usually more genre films and then genre fluid films. So at the very least, you can expect horror thriller. And then there's this Victorian horror film that's a buddy comedy romance that's really beautiful that PJ McCabe and he and I made the beta test together, have co-written and want to co-direct. And it's really lovely and really gorgeous. We're talking to some cool people about doing that. But as of now, I don't know. I feel like I have to make the movie I can make right now instead of daydreaming. I feel like I've been daydreaming for too long. So the next thing on our slate is this comedy about an independent film screener leaking from an agency and then everything falling apart. It's really funny and really poignant.
That sounds like a great follow-up for the beta test. But I do want to see that Victorian story someday. That sounds like a great feature from you. So, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time, man. It was great catching up, and I can't wait to spread the word about this movie.
Oh, thank you. As always, it was my pleasure. Thank you, Grant.
Take care.
A witness spotted a green Pinto with a damaged rear end fleeing the bank at approximately 6:20 a.m. this morning.